Good evening, everybody, and I'd like to welcome you to our seminar tonight for financial fraud and cybersecurity. I'm Stan Lozinski, and I'm joined here by my associate, Donald Bloomberg.
Hope everyone's doing well tonight.
And, the whole reason behind us promoting this seminar was over the last several years, it seems like every month we're getting contacted by another client that has had a data breach or something like that. And, we got to make sure their accounts are protected, which we take care of and so on. And it seems this, since COVID, has really been accelerating. Just as you think you're getting ahead of protecting your systems, they find another back door, and you hear about breaches all the time in the news. So one of the things that we pride ourselves with our back office at the investment center is the fact that we've never had these kinds of events. And a lot of that is due to our speaker tonight, Rob Fernandez, who I've known for about 18 years now. And he really keeps us out of trouble. And that's about the only way I can describe it. He has many more letters behind his name than I do. And he's been a great resource for us over the years in keeping all of our clients' information safe and secure. So I want to present to you Rob Fernandez and let him take it over from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for everybody for being here. I'm sure everybody realizes that cybersecurity is headlining the news all the time. If you watch the news like I do, it's pretty much all over the place. Ransomware attacks are really big right now, especially on hospitals and financial service providers. And a lot of scams are going on from a lot of foreign countries. And they're usually trying to target you guys, the clients, as well as our financial advisors. I mean, we see a lot going to them. The big difference there is that most financial firms, they do a good job in educating the financial advisors in regards to watching out for these attacks. And obviously there's a lot of security controls and tools in place to help prevent those sorts of things. But the way that these attackers look at the clients, they look at them as the weak links, because in a lot of cases, the clients don't get the training and don't have the security tools in place to be able to prevent and protect against these sorts of attacks. So what I'd like to do today is just kind of walk you through what the typical approach from an attacker looks like. And Lockheed Martin calls it the cyber kill chain. And basically, what an attacker would need to do is get everywhere through the entire chain to be successful, right? So we have, we have a lot of areas where we can prevent them and detect them and stop them from getting what they want, which is usually getting your data or getting your money somehow. So just kind of briefly going over this, they start off always with reconnaissance. And reconnaissance is basically where they're finding out information about their targets. And it could be that they're specifically looking, they're targeting a specific individual, or they're targeting a specific organization. But a lot of times they're just going out and finding information, and that's how they find their targets, because they found some low-hanging fruit out there, and they're going after that person now that they found it. But I'll go into these a lot more detail. But it starts with reconnaissance. Once they get the information from their their potential victim, then they weaponize a payload that they will send and deliver to the victim, which will then create exploitation. So this could be either dropping malware and exploiting the malware on that user's workstation or device, or it could be gathering their credentials and exploiting it and logging into their systems and doing stuff. The installation of the malware also usually creates a lot of backdoors, which leads to the command and control, where they can get they get access to your machine. Even if you find their original way of entry, they normally have multiple pathways in after that, even if you shut them down the way that you think they got in, they probably have about 2 or 3 more ways back in once you lock them out, whether it's changing a password or, closing a port or something like that. And then obviously their goals is to exfiltrate data, to kick off ransomware and demand a ransom, so on and so forth. So like I said, these are kind of the most important, the biggest ones right now that we see is ransomware is probably the number one thing right now, as along with data theft. And ransomware is when they encrypt the files on your workstation or in your file server, whether it's in-house or online, or in the cloud. And then once they encrypt your data, they basically send you a ransom saying, hey, we locked all your files. You can't access them again until you pay us X amount of dollars, usually in cryptocurrency, or data theft. Sometimes they'll steal your data, and then either they use your data to perform more intense attacks, or they'll steal your data, they'll hold your data, they won't release your data publicly, but then they'll also use a ransom component to basically say, hey, we have your data, and if you don't pay us X amount of dollars, then we're going to release it to the public. And a lot of the ways they do this is using social engineering, which is basically, a lot of times you call it a scam artist. So it's convincing somebody to do something that's against their best interest. So that could be through a phone call, through a phishing email, impersonation attacks. We're seeing a lot more ways that they're doing it now. And it's becoming a lot more advanced because they used to be easy to detect because they were from overseas. So there would be a lot of misspellings and things like that. But now they're using ChatGPT and other AI tools to formulate these emails or phone calls, and they're using the AI to do it for them. So they're becoming a lot more advanced. Yeah, and I mentioned phishing, that's just another form of social engineering. We're also seeing it through text messaging, phone calls, things like that, even redirecting on websites. Basically, like if you type in a website, and I'm going to go over this later, you'll get a fake result for the website, and you'll think it's the real website, and it'll have a 1-800 number that's not the real company that you're looking for. It's a fake scammer company, and you're calling the scammer direct. So they're tricking you that way as well. So one of the first ways of reconnaissance, and I'm going to go through the mitigations after I go through the problems here, but one of the first ways of reconnaissance is passwords is the number one. And passwords is really either people have passwords that are easy to guess, and a lot of the guessing comes from social media. So, for example, if somebody can access your social media and they know the name of your dog, let's say if you have a dog, they can, they know that a lot of people use their dog's name in their password. So they might use your, Fido and then, 1234, Fido 1997, things like that, right? And they'll come up with these different combinations, and they'll put it into a program that will help try to guess your password based on a lot of the information. And they actually have tools that can basically scrape your entire social media profiles, and it'll gather some of the most used words in your profiles, and it'll use those as parts of the combinations for the passwords. But another thing with social media is obviously, like you see in some of these pictures here, oversharing. And for example, the top picture there, somebody posted a passport, that if you can read their comment, it's really small, so it's hard to read, but they're basically traveling, they're going out of the country, right? So now the attacker will know that this person will be away for some time, out of the country, probably have limited access to email and phone calls and things like that. So it seems like an opportune time to attack this person. So oversharing is one. New driver's license. A lot of new drivers they're so happy that they passed their driver's license test, and they have a new driver's license, and they sometimes share on, Instagram or some other social media, a picture, usually not this close, but sometimes they share these close, pictures of their driver's license so that they can, brag that they got their driver's license. And now it gives all of the information, address, and everything that somebody can use, personal information. New homeowners as well. That's another one that, people often share a lot, and they do it in front of their house where you can see their street number. Sometimes the pictures might contain geolocation where you can get the specific address. And sometimes they even take a picture of their, like, holding up the key to the house, which a lot of people don't think that that's harmful, but you can actually create a real key with just a picture using a 3D printer. And it's been done already. So, just sharing certain things like that. First day of school is really the one that bothers me a lot as well. A lot of people post their kids in their first day of school, showing the name of the school. You can easily look up online where the location of that school is. Now you know where that child is going. So obviously there are, problems with online predators and things like that. So you're giving this information to people that, don't have the best interest of your child in mind, obviously. So, these are certain things. Here's just some more examples of what I was talking about. There's the new driver. There's the house with the house number. And there's the first day of school. Password attacks, I briefly touched on. A lot of people use common words plus characters. Sometimes they add some numbers. So some of the most popular ones are the seasons. So winter, spring, summer, fall, 2022, because people have to rotate their passwords. That's actually not a great password policy to make people constantly rotate their passwords, because then you get passwords like winter 2022. So reuse parts of passwords, right? So once you know that somebody has, a dog's name, you can put this into a program and it'll just change the following characters until it gets the right one. And it's called a brute force attack on your account. And it'll keep going through iterations of similar passwords that you've already used until it gets the right one. So weaponization and delivery, right? So now that they have their target, they're going to go after you. They're going to send you phishing emails. Phishing is the voice, so phone calls, or smishing is SMS, text messaging. So you're going to, they're going to use some of these things to get you. It might look like a fake email from, could be coming from Stan or from Comp Financial. They could be pretending to be, your bank. It could be pretending to be FedEx, saying you have a lost package. So many different combinations of different ways that they use phishing emails. Same thing with phishing. The phone call one usually tends to be, hey, this is Microsoft. We noticed that there's a virus on your account. And we, if you go to this link, we can help you clean it up. And they'll never do that. Microsoft will never call you for something like that. So if you ever get a call like that, you never, that it's always going to be a scam. The best thing you can do when you receive any outreach, no matter which way it comes to you, always reach out to the authentic source directly. So for example, if you receive an email or a phone call that says it's, your bank and it has a 1-800 number, never reach out to the 1-800 number or click the links that are in there. Instead, go to the official phone number of the company in question and reach out to them. Tell them what email you received and ask them if it was legit. USB devices can also be malicious. I always warn people when they're traveling. A lot of times, if you see a charging cable at an airport or things like that, you can basically, they can weaponize these. This looks just like a real USB charging cable, but in fact, this is a weaponized one. So as soon as you plug this into your device or your computer, it will install malware and a backdoor and give the attacker remote access to your computer. They'll know immediately. It'll start pinging them, and they'll be able to get into your device. So if you see a device like this, just a normal looking USB device, if it's sometimes there was actually a police station that was recently attacked using this method, that somebody went into the parking lot and dropped a bunch of these on the floor. And one of the police officers saw one of them, picked them up and plugged it into his computer. And it just to see, maybe it was some case files from another officer, from a detective, but in fact, it was a malicious USB that installed malware, and their entire organization, their entire force was taken down by ransomware because of this. So the other way is that the vulnerabilities exist everywhere. Every single piece of software that you use or own has vulnerabilities on them. We just don't know that they exist at certain times. When they do exist, the company, if it's a good company, like Google or Microsoft, they're going to create what's called a patch or an update. So whenever you get those annoying updates on your phone, that's a lot of times what they're doing is they're patching vulnerabilities that they found so that it's keeping you more safe in the future. But there's always vulnerabilities out there. It's just a matter of when you find them and who finds them first. right? So when they're unknown by the company, so let's say Google had one, or let's say Apple had one in their iPhones. If Apple doesn't know about it yet, but an attacker does, that's called a 0-day exploit. And 0 days are usually only used very high level when you're talking about governments, state actors, things like that. They won't usually be used on you, because the cost of using the 0 day to them is actually more valuable to you. It would cost them more to use it on you than it would to use it on a nation state. So, for example, some of these 0 days are being sold for $200,000, $300,000, $500,000, depending on the severity of the 0-day exploits. So for them to use it on you, they're basically letting Apple know that this exists, and then Apple's going to fix it. So they'd rather use it on a bigger target. But it's important to always do your updates on all of your machines, all of your phones, all of your Windows devices, Apple devices, Linux devices, whatever sort of computers or servers you have. You definitely want to make sure you do the updates as soon as they're released. The longer you go without updating it, sometimes you're busy doing some work and you're like, oh, I'll get to this later. And then you come, 3 weeks later and you didn't do it. That every day is more of a possibility that somebody can attack you. So making sure that you do your updates is really important. The command and control tools, this is what happens after you've already been infected. They basically have command and control tools. So a lot of people think that you have the bad guy actor that's coming in, reaching out to you, going into your computer. It actually doesn't happen that way. It happens more in a way like I showed earlier. An end user gets a phishing email. They click on a link. They don't even realize something happened to their computer, but behind the scenes, some malicious software was installed that has this backdoor, and now your computer actually starts reaching out to the attacker, not the other way around. So your computer, as soon as it becomes infected, automatically goes out to this command and control server that they have running up in the cloud somewhere. And then now all of a sudden, this hacker logs into his server or her server, and now there's thousands of infected computers that have connected to this server now. So now he can go in and remotely connect to each one of them and do things in each one of them, whether it's, ransomware, or whether it's, exfiltrating data or something like that. So going into the mitigations, I talked about social media. Set all your social media profiles to private. Only allow people in that friends and family. And be selective of your friends. Obviously, don't overshare. Don't post vacation photos. Post them when you get back, not while you're away. Make sure there's no sensitive info in your posts, such as the driver's license and things like that I've showed. Addresses, if you have children, make sure you don't show their school names, things like that. But also talk to other people that are friends in your network, because sometimes they'll tag you. So if you're on vacation overseas with a friend and they tag you, people can see that as well through that. So be careful not only of what you share, but also of what your friends are sharing, because their profile might be public to the world and everybody can see what they're tagging you in. More mitigations in regards to passwords, and this is a big one. I highly recommend this for everyone. Whenever I say that your password should be over 16 characters, people always give me a little grin, and I know what they're getting at. Yes, it's hard to remember passwords, but I think that many security practitioners and many people giving security advice about passwords has been wrong for a very long time. What a lot of the advice has been, it's been about saying, let's say, at least 8 characters. Make sure you change it every 30 days or every 6 months, even things like that. I think most people do 30 days or a quarter, quarterly, which I actually don't recommend that. And there's a reason why, because we have tools now that can tell when your passwords get breached, and you can use those tools to find out if your passwords have been breached. But your password should be over 16 characters. But here's the caveat. You should use a password manager. I recommend Bitwarden. 1Password or KeyPassword are other good ones. KeyPass requires a little bit more of a technical person to manage it. So I usually recommend Bitwarden or 1Password. I personally use Bitwarden. And then what you do for Bitwarden is you create a passphrase for Bitwarden. Now, this shouldn't be overcomplicated, but it should be long. So what I recommend that people do is they use a sentence or a phrase. It could be from a book, from a song, from a movie, something that an actor said, something that somebody, an artist in a song sang. And you would want to use that as your password and type it in exactly as it would be written. You could even change one of the characters in a letter. Like, for example, instead of doing an I, you could do a 1 like they did in 1Password. You could do like B1T, right? So you could do that, but really just keep it simple. Like if it's a sentence like, I like buying red roses every week. Right? That's a phrase that is going to be easy for you to remember. Make sure you do it with the first letter capitalized, just like you normally would. Every other, and use spaces. A lot of people don't realize that you can use spaces in a lot of passwords. Spaces mess up a lot of password attacks because a space means it's the end of the word. So a lot of people think it's just the first word is going to be your password, when in fact it's not. So use spaces, use exclamation points or punctuation, a period. If you want to put something like a special character, like a $sign at the end, but just make sure it's an easy phrase that you can remember. And then this is going to be the only password you're ever going to remember. Then change this one once a year. But also using your password manager, such as Bitwarden or 1Password, make sure to enable multi-factor authentication. So that could be a text message. It could be an app that you have on your phone, or it could be a physical device such as a YubiKey, right? So that's a physical device you buy from a company called YubiKey. And so you would have to type in your username and your password, and you would also have to type in, you would also have to input your YubiKey into your device in order for it to work. So a lot of these things, it requires a little bit of extra work on your side, but it's definitely worth it. But now, once you have your, and I did want to make a point about the difference between using your text as a multi-factor authentication versus an app, is that the app is way more secure than the text message, because there's a thing out there called, it's a technique that hackers do. It's called SIM swaps. And if they want to target you, they can basically steal your entire cell phone provider from you. So they buy a brand new phone, they call up your cell phone carrier, they pretend to be you, they say that you lost your phone, you're traveling, and you really need to get this up and going. And cell phone providers are notoriously bad with this sort of attack. They haven't really figured it out yet how to handle this. And sometimes they'll ask you for a secret word, which is similar to a password that the attacker can find out about you online. And they'll use that. Now they'll get all of your phone calls, all of your text messages will go to them, and your phone service will completely stop working on your device. And by the time you figure out that they did this, they now have access to your text messages, which they now have access to your MFA. So I recommend that you must use MFA. This from a security practitioner's perspective, this isn't even a recommendation. This is a request. You should always use MFA, and you should always use a passphrase, and use a password manager. So this is going to be your one place where you're going to keep all of your passwords in the password manager. That's why this is the only one that you're going to ever have to remember. Then the password manager is going to go with you to every site that you log into, and it's going to create a new password for you. Or in some sites, you might have to manually go in and do that, but you need to create a brand new password, but you let your password manager generate it for you. Make sure it generates one that's over 16 characters. And when they do that, you are not going to know any of your passwords for any of your sites, because your password manager is going to manage that for you. And then all you need to do is remember the one for your password manager, and then get in there, and then every single password should be unique. See, one of the biggest problems is people reuse either the entire password, or they reuse a portion of their password on multiple different sites. So for example, they might have one password that they use for 5 different sites. It could be their banking account, it could be their Google account, it could be whatever they log into, and they have the exact same password. Every single site should be completely unique, not just changing a few characters. That doesn't make it unique enough, because there's tools that can guess those few characters that are changed. So like I mentioned, you want to have everyone unique. I did a recent investigation on an organization, and I was able to find out so much information about a person because I found that one of their passwords that then led into it was a password that was reused in a lot of different places. So this is a very common thing that people do because it's hard for people to remember passwords. That's why this is really important. That's why I'm spending so much time on this slide, because it's so important. I want to make sure that everybody understands this point right here about the passphrases, a password manager, and multi-factor authentication, and having unique passwords for every single site that you log on to, and then just let the password manager manage those for you. So again, here's another example of a passphrase. Again, you're going to let this go for you. This would be a good one. This is a quote from a book, and using punctuation just like this. This will be incredibly difficult for an attacker to get into if this was your password, unless you typed it into a phishing email where they're asking you for your credentials for something and you type this in, then they have it. Then it's going to be easy for them. But other than that, guessing this is next to impossible. So don't give them the opportunity with something like this. Don't trust your emails, even when they look legit. I know that sounds crazy and paranoid, because it is, because I've seen it too many times. Stan recently mentioned, he gets a lot of his clients that call up because they've been hacked. So what we actually see a lot on our side is that the clients end up getting their email hacked. And then the attacker is actually sitting in the client's email, and they don't immediately do something once they get in your email. Sometimes they sit in your email account for weeks or months. We've seen up to a year where they can sit in your account, where they have access 24/7 for a year in your account. And then they wait for the opportune time to do something, to send an email. So for example, we saw a case where there was a client that was working with a financial advisor whose son was about to go to college. So the attacker has been sitting inside, reading the emails back and forth between the client and the rep, and realized that this person has a child that's about to go to college, and they're going to need some money soon. And they waited for the right moment. There was actually a legitimate phone call, a real phone call between the client and the financial advisor, where the client called the financial advisor saying, "Hey, I'm ready to use that money for my son to go to college now. I need to do an ACH and get some of the money out of this account." And the client, this was all on the phone, said, "Okay, I'm going to send you over the form that you need to fill out in order to get this done. It's going to ask for your ACH number and all this other stuff. Fill that out and send it back to me." So the financial advisor then went in, sent the blank form out to the client for the client to fill out. And the form that the financial advisor received was filled out completely, but not by the client, because the client never saw it, because the attacker had access to be able to delete that email as soon as it came in, so that the client never even saw that email with the form to fill out. And they filled it out with their information, with the client's name and information, but with the fake routing numbers that go to the scammer. And that worked. And it was a $20,000 loss for the client. Obviously, insurance did cover that, and it was taken care of. But it's important to understand that that's the way a lot of these things these things act, is that you can try to look for phishing emails. And I think it's good to get in the habit to look for phishing emails, but also understand some emails will actually be because a trusted person that you do email communications with has been compromised. So always wonder if anybody's asking you to do something, pick up the phone, call that person directly before you do it. In the case of the one that I just mentioned, there's not a lot that could have been done in that situation. But it's just important to know that attackers could be living inside of your devices or your email accounts for a long amount of time with going unnoticed, and you don't even realize it, and they're reading all of your conversations. There are ways that you can go in and sanitize your email. So for example, you can look and see if they created any forwarding emails within your account. So you'd have to go into your account settings to see if they're forward anything out to the threat actor's account. Sometimes they have automatic rules that will delete certain things that have certain keywords in it, like account transfer or ACH form, things like that. And it might automatically delete it so that only the attacker can see them and you won't see them. They might even go in and change your secondary email so it's their email address. So now if you get locked out, or if you change your password, they can go and do I forgot my password, and it'll send it to your secondary email address, which is now the attacker's secondary email address. Same thing with phone numbers. They can put their phone number in your account as if it's yours. And if you need to do a reset, it'll go to their text message, not yours. So you could look for those in your email today to see if anybody's been in there. Obviously, installing antivirus, anti-malware, and keeping it updated all the time to make sure that it's testing for these things. But this is not a be-all, end-all. A lot of malware can bypass anti-malware now. So you still have to be cautious. Again, I mentioned the USB devices. You don't want to plug in any USB devices that you don't know if it's not from a trusted source. And public Wi-Fi is also a danger. When you connect to public Wi-Fi, do you know that Wi-Fi is secured? Because there are tools where, let's say you go into Starbucks and you connect to their Wi-Fi. There could be somebody sitting in Starbucks with a Wi-Fi pineapple, which is a sniffing device that could sniff traffic on the Wi-Fi. And they can get all your traffic, and they could see what sites you're logging into, what your passwords are. They could even trick you into logging into one of their fake pages. So let's say you go to the Starbucks and you log into your Gmail account, and then all of a sudden you got logged out and you don't know why. And you see another Gmail page come up, and you think it's Gmail, you think it's Google, but it's really the attacker. You're logging in now, you're putting your credentials into their device. Now they're capturing your credentials. Now they can go leave Starbucks and log on from anywhere acting as you, right? And now they own your email again. So always use a virtual private network. So that's just a program you install on your device. Proton VPN is the one that I use. There's a few other ones out there, but it's something that I always have running on my phone and on my device, so that whenever I'm out, everything is running through a VPN. And basically all that does is it gets you to your destination, but it gets you there in a secure way. If you think about it, when you go out on the internet, if you're going through a public network like a Starbucks or something like that, that information could be all over think of that as like a wild, wild west, right? With just all kinds of bad guys and all kinds of things running around out there. And when you have the VPN, it basically creates a tunnel that's secure. So all of the bad stuff that's out there is outside of that tunnel, and your traffic back and forth to your bank account or your email account is going through that secure tunnel. Something that you can implement today is a DNS filter. And this goes to the, this will handle a lot of things. So like there a lot of like the attackers, like I was talking about earlier with command and control, they use devices that are out in the cloud that are known to a lot of security providers. So using a DNS filter will prevent your internet traffic from going to any of these. So Cisco Umbrella is one of them. I believe they still have a free family home version that you can install. You basically just set it up. You can set it up on your router, or you could set it up on each device that you use, so that everything in your house goes through Cisco Umbrella. So anything that is trying to reach out to a malicious website will be blocked by Cisco Umbrella. I mentioned about spotting some of the phishing emails, right? So one of the things is obviously look at where it comes from. If you look at the from field on the top left here, the from field says Bank of America. But if you actually look at the email address, it's some random characters at Comcast.net. So Bank of America will never send out anything from Comcast.net. Sometimes it says undisclosed recipients because it's sending out to a lot of people. And then the reply to is in there as well. You can see the reply going to a Comcast.net. Dear member, you know, there's you know, it would usually say your name on it. And then when you hover over the link, you should see like a shortener. See, this one right here says bit.do and then a bunch of random characters. So if you hover over something and it doesn't take you to bankofamerica.com, that's not legit. Same thing with any of these urgent. Whenever you see something like, you know, update current bill, you know, unfortunately, we cannot authorize, you know, this is, you know, again, on the top, it says Netflix, but the email address is some weird email address up here. But again, don't go solely on these detection techniques, because even if they look real, they could be fake. Like I said, ChatGPT is making a lot of very realistic phishing emails nowadays. So whenever you get something like this, especially something from your bank, just call your bank account. You know, pick out your bank card, call the 1-800 number that's on your bank card. Don't reach out to any information that's on this email at all. And again, I mentioned about legitimate emails, you know, wire transfer forms. It could look like it's coming from a trusted person, but what if that person's email got hacked? So always keep that in mind as well. Now, this was an interesting one with malicious websites in search results. So if you were to do a search result, so for example, I did a search result for Comp Financial over here in this left one, and you can see the top one comes up. This is organic, right? This is organic. If it has something that says ad, like these ones in the right, that say ad, or sponsored ad next to them, they're not organic. Somebody paid for them to get there. And I've seen cases, specifically with this one where it says HP printer support, where the real HP one is down here, the green one that I have circled here in the bottom. But the paid ones could be anything from anybody. And I've seen people that were searching for HP printer support do this, and they click on the first one, and there's a toll-free number, just like it says here, but it goes to a scammer that says, okay, I'm going to help you fix your printer problem. Just let me remote into your computer, and they do it, and it's a hack. So I think Google has gotten a little bit better at detecting these and preventing these from showing up, but this is a real hack right here. If you look up here, you know, I search for HP printer support, and it's an ad, and it's a .in, which is usually from India. That's what the .in usually stands for. So, you know, be careful of any paid ads. I always ignore these ones if they say ad or sponsored, and I always go right to the organic results when I'm looking for them. So knowing your network, you know, that's important as well. Make sure you do your operating system updates. I talked about patches and security updates. Make sure you do them as soon as they're released. The software updates are the same. Don't connect insecure devices to your networks. A lot of times people buy some of these smart devices that they buy on Amazon. That's another threat vector that a lot of attackers, because Amazon does drop shipping. So I can buy a bunch of legitimate products, like could be security cameras, let's say, and I can buy, let's say I go out and buy 1,000 of them, and I open every single box up and I install a little back door into every single device. Not only, and then I drop ship them. So I send them out to Amazon, and then Amazon sells them for me. And now all of a sudden you bought one of these drop shipped, you know, malicious devices that you think is a legitimate camera, and you plug it into your network. So not only now can the threat actor see all of your, you know, inside of your house or outside of your house, wherever you're putting these cameras, could be in your bedrooms, could be in a lot of places. And then, you know, they can see that information and record it, and maybe use that, and maybe use information there to ransom you. But also now they're on your network too. So a lot of times they can actually move and move laterally on your network to get into other devices like computers and things like that. So be careful of what you connect from your network. I usually try to buy anything security related or network related. I usually try to go straight to the source. So if I'm buying something from IBM, I'm going straight to IBM, and, you know, different things like that. But Amazon is not really a good place to buy network devices because of that reason. Again, I mentioned using antivirus, anti-malware, and don't install software from untrusted sources. Always go to the source. You know, sometimes you might look for an update for, I don't know, let's say your security camera, and you're searching for it. Make sure you go to the site of the vendor to install it, and don't go to some third-party site. So I mentioned the DNS monitoring. This is Cisco umbrella. So they have this thing called Family Shield or DNS Home. Family Shield blocks adult content as well as malicious content. The Open DNS Home is just malicious content. So you can do this. There's also VIP, which is the paid versions, but these are free. I believe they're still free. I'd have to check at the time now if they still have the free offerings. But using the DNS monitoring will help against that sort of attack. So in summary, passwords, I can't stress enough the importance of a password manager, using a passphrase, using MFA. And I did mention using MFA on your password manager, but use it everywhere else as well. Use it on every account that you can possibly log into, because this is just one step to make the attacker's life harder getting into your accounts. If they do get your password, they might need your MFA. So especially banking accounts and things like that, you should always turn on MFA on those accounts. And again, using an app or a hardware key is preferred. So I use like Google Authenticator, for example. That's one of the apps that you can use for MFA. The hardware key is called YubiKey. You could use that as well. Some providers and some banks don't allow these options yet. They only do the text message. So use the text message in that case, because it's better than nothing. Again, don't trust the emails, websites, pop-ups, phone calls, text messages. I know I sound paranoid, don't trust everything in the world, right? But I guess it's the world I live in, and I've seen it happen to the best of us. So just be careful with so many of these things. Use a VPN, Proton VPN, NordVPN are two recommended ones. Don't overshare on social media. Install antivirus and anti-malware. Keep your operating systems and software up to date. DNS monitoring, and then teach others what you have learned, especially family members, right? Because if you do all this yourself in your home, but you have family members and kids that don't, then you're only as strong as your weakest link. So thank you all for coming out. Thank you, Stan, for putting this on. If there are any questions, I'll leave it now as a good time for questions.
We are going to be providing links to everybody that registered, and please definitely share this with family and friends. It is such an important topic. Again, the bad actors out there have gotten more prolific, and again, as Rob is alluding, a lot of the time, all this AI with ChatGPT and things like that are really allowing them to facilitate very sophisticated attacks. We can only be as good as our defenses. So do everything, if you can, what he was recommending, and hopefully this will never affect you or impact your life at any level. All right.
Hey, Stan, I see a question in the Q&A here.
Oh, there we go.
There's a Carol Ann Lowley.
Okay.
Asking about Apple computers. Yeah, and it is necessary, and there are a few out there. Avast is one of them. I'm trying to see. I think CrowdStrike is starting to provide. CrowdStrike is a really good antivirus tool, and I believe that, I don't know if it's released yet, but I think they're either in the works or it is available. But Avast is another one. I'm trying to see which others are. But I would say yes, it's still required. However, as I mentioned, it's not the be all end all. You're not, 100% safe just because you have that. There's a lot of other things, making sure you do your updates regularly. And when I say updates, not just your Apple updates, but also whatever apps you have installed on your Apple device. They need to be updated as well. So make sure, like, the little software, like especially on your phone, it's so easy for somebody to download an app on their phone. So make sure you update those apps regularly. Whenever you see an alert, they usually alert you to it, but sometimes I even go in and look to see if there's any updates available. So, make sure your software is updated, and then make sure, a lot of the best practices that I mentioned here are behavioral. So just make sure that you're, behaving, with a security mindset when you're, reading emails, when you're going to, emails, websites, anything you're doing. Just make sure you're careful with all those things. And I have another one from Linda somebody. Not sure if I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I apologize. Google One VPN on phone is okay. Yes. Yep. Yeah. And just if you have the setting to make sure you have it turned on all the time, do that, because sometimes you just forget and you're, browsing around doing stuff and you might be out and about. If you're, I'd be curious, are you using Google's network, Linda? Their phone service? Because one of the things, okay, using Verizon. Okay, so Google actually has their own phone service, and while Google is not great with the privacy aspect of things, I mean, neither really is Verizon or AT&T or any of them, to be honest with you. But Google is really good on the security aspect of most of the things. So I mentioned earlier about SIM swaps, where the attacker can trick the phone carrier into pretending that they're you and then switching over your phone number to their device. That's next to impossible in the Google network. It's called Google Fi. And the reason why is because they do everything through your account. And I shouldn't say it's next to impossible. It's only next to impossible if you turn on what they have that's called advanced protection. So if you turn on, if you have a Google Fi service for your cell phone and you use advanced protection, the SIM swap thing is next to impossible. I always say next to impossible for everything, because I think that hackers are very ingenious with the way that they do things, and they always come up with new ways that surprise me. So I never like to say that it's impossible, but I can't figure out a good way unless they steal your physical security device to do it. And that's how Google secures their devices, using the YubiKey, which is the security device that I mentioned earlier. So they actually do a really good job with security. But yes, to answer your question, the Google One VPN is okay to use. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions after the fact, I'm sure you all know Stan and his office, so just reach out to them. And they can relay the questions to me or get you in touch with me, and I'll be more than happy to help out.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you again, Rob, and everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you found this informative. I even learned some more things that I should probably be doing personally, but I think that was great. And Rob, again, thank you so much. It's such an important topic, and hopefully everyone has listened and can implement some of these protocols to protect themselves. Thank you so much,
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye-bye.